Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to another edition of my channel, Jackson's Journal. My name is Matthew Jackson. Today I want to talk to you about worship, and more importantly, I want to talk to you about what worship is not. Now, what started this journey of mine on the subject of worship basically starts when I was in Bible school at the Agape Force Training Institute. There was a teacher there by the name of Leonard Ravenhill. And one of the principles he taught was that prayer was preoccupation with God concerning your needs. Praise was preoccupation with God concerning what He has done for you. And then worship is preoccupation with God Himself. Now, the significance of that was that he really made the distinctions between prayer, praise, and worship. And what he said at the time really rang true for me. I mean, that just sounded right. Now, at the time, he didn't back it up with any biblical foundation because he said it as a sidebar to what he was teaching. It wasn't really the main part of what he was talking about. But it rang true, so much so that later on, after Bible school, when I was going to churches and holding down a job and living a regular life, I'd hear Christians use the word worship in the context of music, primarily. It wasn't all that uncommon to hear the songs that you sing at church called worship songs, and the person leading the singing during the song service part of the church, they would call that person the worship leader. They would call the band playing the songs the worship band. In fact, sometimes sanctuaries of churches are often called worship centers. And on and on and on. Now we have ministers of music called worship pastors. So that whole concept is really blown up. But then again, we have some circles of evangelicals that even go beyond music, and they'll say that there are 5 acts of worship in the church. They'll say that singing is an act of worship. They'll say giving is an act of worship, communion, prayer, and preaching and teaching. In fact, I've been to some services where they would call when they would call the offering, they would say, okay, well, now let's worship in our giving. And then when they're about to do the sermon, the pastor delivers a message, I've heard the term worship in the word. Okay? So, as time goes on, the concept of worship keeps on expanding. Now, let me give you another example. This is something that Rick Warren, he's a best-selling author of the book, what's that book? Boy, it got me stumped. Well, on the book, Purpose-Driven Life, thank you. That's it, Purpose-Driven Life. Now, there's another book he wrote, What on Earth Am I Here For? In this book, he said, when you use your life as for God's glory, everything you do can become an act of worship. So now we got Rick Warren continuing this delusion, this diluting the concept and watering down the concept of what worship is. Now, one thing you need to know is there's a biblical definition of what worship is. And then there's the pop contemporary definition of what worship is. And believe me, there are 2 different things. They're not even close to each other. That's number one. Another thing we need to keep in mind is that praise and worship are 2 completely different concepts. They mean two totally different things. They're non sequiturs. And you hear Christians today, especially evangelicals, say the word praise and worship like it's all one thing, praise and worship. No, they're 2 different things. One has little to do with the other, hardly anything to do with the other. Okay, so Let me get that out of the way. Now, so when you think of words like, when you think of activities like singing, dancing, clapping, raising your hands, playing instruments, those activities all fall into the category of praise. They're not worship. They are praise. Giving an offering is also an act of praise. Prayer is its own activity. Communion is its own activity. It is not worship. See, worship is not an act. It's not an activity. Worship is a posture and an attitude. That's what the Bible teaches about worship. It's a posture and an attitude. It's a posture of bowing, kneeling, being prostrate in a lowly, humble position. So what better way to be preoccupied with God himself when you're bowing? That's what Leonard Ravenhill was alluding to when he taught that when I was in Bible school. So it's total preoccupation with God himself. It doesn't say any. If you were to search the scriptures, you will not find one Bible verse that says singing, music has anything to do with worship. Nothing. Now what I did, I wanted to test what Leonard Ravenhill taught, and I actually did an exhaustive study on worship, but also I did an exhaustive study on praise. I looked up words in the original languages as they were written. All the vast majority, the overwhelming vast majority of the original definitions of the word worship all talk about bowing, kneeling, being prostrate. Okay, any scripture references talking about singing, raising your hands, clapping, music, all that falls under the category of praise. So we've got to get our categories straight. What I did is I did an exhaustive study, and at the end of my study, I wrote a 9,800 word dissertation on my findings of worship, what the Lord had taught me in my Bible study on the subject of worship. I published my findings in my book called Are You a Virtuoso? Chapter 4 is where my dissertation resides. You can go to zulonpress.com or you can go to amazon.com to buy my book, Are You a Virtuoso? By Matthew A. Jackson. If you think that I am crassly promoting my book and making a commercial out of my book and you don't want to spring for the $15 plus shipping and handling to buy my book, I'll tell you what, you can just go to my email, Matthew A. Jackson, it's all together, one lowercase thing there, Matthew A. Jackson 15 at gmail.com. You email me, I'll send you a free PDF copy of my dissertation. Or you can go to zulonpressandbuyit.com or amazon.com. So that is the main thing that I wanted to get through in this video today, is that you have the pop cultural definition of worship, and then you have the biblical definition. And when you hear evangelicals today use the word worship, I would say about 99% of the time, it's going to be in the pop contemporary definition. They have no idea what the biblical definition of worship is. Now, I tell you what, I challenge you guys out there to give my writing, give my dissertation a fair reading, and tell me where I've gone wrong. And I really extend this challenge to those of you who are in academia, those of you who are pastors, those of you who have postgraduate degrees, those of you who are theologians. Read my work. Tell me where I've gone wrong. In fact, I'll come to your campus and debate you in front of your students. So, I just want to let you know that worship is not what you think it is. I know I'm going against the party line because a lot of you are brainwashed. Because the pastor says it's worship, you believe it's worship. Because you've been hearing evangelicals been saying this for generations now, that singing is worship, or praying or giving an offering is an act of worship. No, it's not. Okay? So, thank you for watching. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel and watch some of my other videos. Until next time, God bless.